most complete team, a team that doesn't have any holes, a team that can beat you in different ways at different paces with offense or defense, with bench scoring, with starter scoring, with three-point scoring, or with transition scoring. The Rockets are a team that checks every single box. The only thing they don't have is a true low-post scorer. But what great team does? Golden State doesn't have a true low-post scorer. Cleveland doesn't have a true low-post scorer. Like, nobody that matters has a true low-post scorer. Detroit's got two of them, and they're going to miss the damn playoffs. Like, so are they the most complete team in the NBA? They are. I mean, and on this winning streak, CC, I mean, they have beaten, not only they won 17 in a row in 22 of 23, but, I mean, they have beaten Golden State, they've beaten Boston, they've beaten Oklahoma City, they've beaten Cleveland, they've beaten Minnesota 3 times. They have beaten some of the best teams in the league on their way throughout this winning streak in this last 2 months of great basketball.
This becomes very difficult, just the wording, the most complete team, because Golden State is so exceptional in certain areas that maybe they might not be as good in another area. So complete, like, does that mean the best? You know, to me, I'm still worried about the coach, D'Antoni. I'm still worried about, in a 7-game series, what adjustments he's going to make when the game changes. So from a coaching standpoint, I have more confidence in Steve Kerr. Now, there is something that the Warriors have never dealt with. That is postseason pressure. Last year with Kevin Durant, they skated through. Now, the previous 2 times they were in the playoffs, they did have a couple little hiccups, but with Durant, they've never struggled in the playoffs. So I would say the same thing for Houston. We're worried about them in the playoffs. Well, what if someone gets a 2-1 lead on Golden State? How do they respond to that with Kevin Durant? That's something that we haven't seen. But we know they have the championship pedigree. So, yes, right now we might say Houston is more complete. But in stressful situations, who is better from a coaching standpoint? I would just say right now I give the advantage to Steve Kerr. Why? Because I've seen it. And I haven't seen Houston do it. So right now, in March, complete. But yes, but Golden State is so good. And they have 2 of the top 5 players, so they can be lack in a certain area. You could be like, 100%. Oh, their bench is a little bit older, or we don't know how Livingston's going to play. Things like that, but they are so good. They got guys at the end of the game that can take over the game, and they got 2 of those guys. Everyone else only has 1.
They have, at the end of games, they're going to have 4 Hall of Famers on the court. They're the only team in the league can say that. Like, that's their frontline talent is overwhelming. And one thing, my eyes kind of perked up when you brought up the coaching, because when I'm checking all these boxes for Houston, the 2 things that are somewhat in the intangible category, experience in the postseason and coaching excellence. I think D'Antoni's a good coach, but I agree with you. I think Golden State's got the coaching edge. We know they have the experience edge. That wasn't really, I wasn't incorporating when I was like, you want this, you want this, you want that. I was thinking from a player's perspective. It's a really good point.
One of the next couple games that they have is going to be going up against Toronto, which will be a really good test for them to see the way Toronto's playing and the way the Rockets are playing right now. All right, speaking of Golden State, which you were, let's move on to Kevin Durant and the Warriors. Durant's having another great season, and Durant's having another year of being overlooked as a front runner for MVP. According to Durant, this doesn't bother him. See, when you're great, you either play great or you tell people that you play great while also playing great. Durant chose the latter, telling Yahoo Sports, "Look, I know how good I am. Everybody in this league knows how good I am. All the fans know. They know when I step on the court, they fear me as fans of the game. But obviously, the move that I made, they didn't like it. So anything to take a shot at me here and there, I knew it was coming." Or perhaps it's quotes like that that make people wonder about what your intentions are. What do you think, Nick? Is Kevin Durant right with everything he said?
He is right about everything but one part of it. One of the parts of the quote we didn't mention there was he said, "I hear the crowd gasp when the ball comes to me on an open shot." It's 100% right. He's 100% right that the fans know how good he is in comparison to his contemporaries. He's 100% right. The players in the league know how good he is in comparison to the other players in the league. The one thing Durant is not taking into account there, or maybe just doesn't care about, but me as a guy that loves the history of the game, I do care about, is what his move to Golden State has deprived us of figuring out is how you can actually place him in the all-time pantheon. Because he's a guy with all-time pantheon ability. He's a guy that absolutely has the skill set and theoretically the accomplishments to be considered one of the 10 greatest players ever. For his career, he gives you 27 a game on better than 49% shooting. Here's the full list of guys who have done that. Durant, LeBron, Jordan, and Wilt. Like, he is in that, he could end up in that discussion. But it's going to be so hard because everyone in that top 10 all time has on their resume a championship where we look at and say they were the unquestioned, clear-cut alpha on their team, leader who carried their team. Kobe got that with his second run of championships. Shaq got that with the first run. We can go down the list. LeBron didn't get it until 2 years ago in Cleveland. So that is the one thing that if Durant stays in Golden State with Steph for the rest of his career, that we won't get to find out. But the rest of it, what he's talking about in the here and now, I got no problem with what he said, and I think what he said is correct.
All the players in the top 10 as far as NBA ranking all time, every one of them you can poke holes in their resume. Every one of them you can poke holes in what their legacy is. But for me, before Kevin Durant went there, he didn't have no legacy. He wasn't going to be no winner. He was going to get ready to score a lot of points, a lot like Melo, score a lot of points, be a phenomenal scorer, but not a champion. And your legacy changes when you are a champion. So without the move to Golden State, we'll say, man, he might not have won a championship. So when you don't have a championship, you're already down a couple tiers of the greatest players ever. To me, you also have to judge him on the time for which he played. It's the time of the super team. Kevin Durant was a free agent. He lived out his obligation in OKC. He don't have to stay there to prove himself for a legacy standpoint to me. It's about, man, how do I get better? And going to Golden State, it made him a better player. I could care less if he was playing with people who couldn't see out there, being the best in the NBA. And I think that his relationship with LeBron and the things that he said, he gets a lot of validation from LeBron, who's one of his best friends. Kevin Durant is a phenomenal player. People do gasp when he gets the ball. Yes, the thing that Kevin didn't mention was, I ain't got no problem with what you do on the court. The only issue I had was the stuff that he did off the court that seemed petty. It seemed immature. It seemed not becoming of one of the greatest players ever. He left that part out. So I have no problem with him going to Golden State. Yes, you might give him criticism, but he's got to do what's best for his career. And to me, he didn't have a legacy until he went to Golden State and was able to win a championship and win the MVP in the final.
Before we take it off court, I just want to ask you one thing, because you mentioned he wouldn't have had a legacy without winning a title. I firmly believe had he stayed in Oklahoma City, they could have won a title. I mean, they were up 3-1 on the Warriors, and it took one of the greatest performances in a playoff game ever by Klay Thompson for them to not go to the finals, a finals they would have been favored over Cleveland in. Now, I don't know if they would have beaten Cleveland, but I don't look at KD.
But now that question is answered, though. You're talking about, well, if he would have stayed there, they would have had potentially a chance. Now that variable's moved. He's a champion. He's the MVP of the finals. Mm-hmm. So, why doesn't he have the right, like any other player, to move to another team?
No. It's not about him not having the right. And I've never said he didn't have the right. And I understand that. And part of this is selfish on my behalf.
What if he didn't believe in the organization? What if he didn't believe in Russ?
Recognize all that. And which is why, for a lot of people, myself included, all of those would have been. He could have gone to 28 teams and not gotten hardly any criticism. He went to the one team he was going to be hyper-criticized for joining, or one of two. I guess if he had teamed up with LeBron, he would have been criticized as well. But the point, you mentioned you can poke holes in the resumes of the top 10 guys all time. Of course you can. Like, we can poke holes. I poked the hole in Jordan's. You poked the hole in LeBron's. Like, we can, of course you can. But what all those guys have in common is a ring where everyone knew they were the guy. And LeBron, by the way, LeBron was not even considered in the discussion for greatest player ever until he got that 2 years ago in Cleveland. Like, that is the one thing that if KD stays there forever, that is going to make it hard for guys like me, and I know we're different on this, that like to make lists, that like to talk about who are the greatest of the greats. It's going to be hard to place him because his talent clearly puts him there.
Here's what I'm picking up on, is that neither of you have an issue with what he said. I know you don't. You say it's well within any athlete's right to tell people how good they are. I would not have an issue with this if LeBron said it. For some reason, it's Kevin Durant, and it goes to everything else that has sort of been Kevin Durant's recent legacy. Like a lot of the distracting stuff, a lot of the let me tell you how good I am, because me just showing you how good I am is not enough. People gasp when I get the ball. It's not, what is the point of that? It's unnecessary. You're great. We know you're great. We've seen it. We've seen it on the bottom of your shoe. We've seen it on your fake Twitter accounts. We know how good you are every single night. I don't understand how that makes him look better at all. To the fan, to his teammates.
Yeah, I don't think he cares, nor do I think he should. He is a phenomenal player. He is not just, oh man, we'll see another guy come along like
Right,
this.
he is a phenomenal player.
We are not going to see another 7-footer.
No.
Who can dribble the ball and score the basketball, cross people over, a rim defender. 100%. We are not going to see that. And what about being authentic? Like, what about that's the way he feels? Like, it's his career. I just get so upset with people who love to manage other people's career, because if I was that person, I would. Well, you're not that person. And that person deserves the right to be able to choose where they want to work. And when you have a microphone in their face, they have the right to say what. And I believe Kevin Durant believes that.
Jenna, I was as critical of Durant for the shoes and the fake Twitter accounts and the all of a sudden tough guy act that he was, I thought, perpetrating the first half of this year as anyone on television. I think all those things irked me. I thought he was not representing himself as a true superstar in this league, should all those things. This, to me, is just honesty. And maybe I'm a man on an island. I prefer every day of the week honest, authentic cockiness as opposed to false humbleness.
Him and LeBron did the commercial, and LeBron said, we're the best two players in the world,
Correct.
and we have been for a long time. So if LeBron can say it, KD can definitely say it.
But LeBron's not nearly as image conscious as we all talk about KD being.
I think LeBron's the most image conscious athlete in the world. I think LeBron.
But you have to admit he is too.
Listen, and KD,
and he's worried about it. How come I became the bad guy?
KD certainly does care what people are saying about him. Like I know.
Right, and
that's
I'm
a
saying
real
that
thing.
doesn't help.
He's human. So do you. And so do you.
Right, but I
can
wouldn't come out and say I'm the best. I know I'm good at stuff, but I wouldn't say I'm the best.
But he is.
At it. But why do you have to tell people? We know you are. We know you're the best.
I'm going to tell you, Jenna, I don't believe anyone in the history of football caught the ball better than me. And you know the reason why I say that? Because no one else is going to say it. And the reason why? Because I really, 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 really believe it.
And did you say it while you were playing? Did you come
Absolutely.
out I'm the best.
Absolutely.
He's better.
Listen, Jenna, this is just to be quick here. This is, and it's not a criticism, but this is you assigning your own sensibilities to some, like Chris says that. I think one of the,
it's just my opinion. That's it. It's not me assigning. This has nothing to do with me. That's just how I feel. I bet you fans feel that way.
Of course, but
the fans are assigning their sensibilities when they do that.
Exactly, right.
Because they always feel like if I was in that position, I wouldn't do that. That's what you're doing. You're assigning your sensibilities to them.
And by the way, so are we.
Them.
So are we. Like, one of the reasons I think Chris and I, when we met, hit it off is that the thing that he said about the way he catches the football, man, like, I've got that in me as well. Like, I will say right now, I don't think there's a person that does this for a living that's smarter than me. They might know more things. I don't think there's a person that stalks sports for a living that is smarter than I am. I believe that. I'm proud of that. And I'll say that on TV. What Chris said about his career, but you would never, you could believe all those things and you would never say it. But that's just who you are. So one of the reasons we're assigning our sensibilities to Katie, like one of the reasons we got no problem with these comments is, let me tell you this, if I were Kevin Durant, if I were that rich, that famous, and that good at that type of job, man, you wouldn't be able to tell me nothing. Like, please, that would be the least arrogant thing I said all week. Like, so I have no problem with those comments. The shoes, the Twitter accounts, that's a different type of immaturity, at least in my eyes.
All right, coming up, does Michael Bennett make the Eagles the best defense? The best. Nobody better. The best defense.